Fresh Voices is a group of immigrant and refugee youth and adult allies.
It's youth with different journeys and experiences.
It's the members of the youth advisory team
and the youth that attend our forums.
It's youth with different journeys and experiences
that come together to share our stories,
understand systems,
influence policies, and create change.
It's a safe space
filled with talented, passionate, innovative young people.
So my name is Paulo Munoz. I am an artist and a designer. I'm originally from Colombia, but I grew up in Vancouver. I got involved with the Fresh Voices project at the first summit. Fresh Voices was a culmination of different streams of immigrant and refugee youth activism that kind of came together into this one space. And it gave me a platform to tell the stories, to tell my story as a refugee, and to tell the stories of the people that I was working with, and have more impactful advocacy with policymakers and with just stakeholders and decision makers. A lot of the artwork that I do is there's collaboration involved. And there's, if we think about the cloud, I included voices of LGBTQ2S folks into the cloud. And so Fresh Voices in this kind of structure really gave me the skills for learning how to engage people. And that has definitely translated into a lot of the artwork that I do. And community organizing, the work that we did at Fresh Voices, knew how to create the infrastructure for talking, create the systems for talking, the systems for listening. And I think now more than ever, it's important to be able to do that.
Through Fresh Voices, we create space for solidarity
within and among our communities.
We work towards building bridges with Indigenous youth
and understanding what it means to live on this land.
Haltzlahel, Haliasitsta. My name is Kaia George. I'm from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation here in North Vancouver, and I'm from the Tulalip tribes down in Washington State. My Tsleil-Waututh people were people of the inlet, and so we come from the Burrard Inlet, just that surrounds Vancouver. I was on the 2016 Fresh Voices Forum, and on the panel, I got to hear so many different voices, and I got to hear so many different opinions that I'd never heard before, and I immediately, it kind of hit me. I have to start working. This is how we're gonna start. We need to work together, is we need to hear each other's voices. One of the things I'm most passionate about is connecting my Indigenous culture and heritage and bringing that to immigrant people so they could see who we are, and they could see we're still here, and they could see we still have our values and our connection to this land and connection. It's not just Vancouver, it's not just the inlet, it's been home. That's our oldest ancestors, the Burrard Inlet. It's part of who we are. And that was part of our way. We traveled on canoes to different villages, and we got to come in contact with so many different peoples. So it wasn't something totally new to us, and that's something that's a part of our culture, is welcoming people and in showing them who we are. I see that there are a lot of parallels between what the immigrant youth and the Indigenous youth have went through. There's displacement, and there's this pain and separation from your family. That's a common thing I see for a lot of youth, is that separation from who you are. And I feel like just because there is colonization, pain, and abuse, that doesn't have to be the norm here, because that was set so many years ago. That doesn't have to be that way.
We learn from each other's life experiences.
We lead and sit on decision-making tables,
supported by our peers and allies,
and create strong youth and adult partnerships.
We hold forums to create dialogue between youth and decision makers.
Today we are with Mary Ellen. She was the former BC representative, children and youth.
And in that role, I was able to work with the Vancouver Foundation and have the first ever Immigrant Refugee Summit. How it inspired me in particular was to see that in British Columbia, there were voices that were not being heard. And I felt very grateful for the young people that took their experiences and shared them in such a positive way to change the system. One of the areas for immediate change was in the education system. And for a long time, it was this sort of second-tier system, English as a second language system. And because of the work of Fresh Voices, it changed to English language learners, and it changed the whole perception. And I thought that that policy change was so overdue, and it was really beautiful to watch how the advisory committee, by becoming strong and bringing their example forward, changed the education system. If youth aren't involved, who's going to carry their voice? And I think what was really important about this initiative was recognizing that sometimes adults need to just get out of the way.
We award immigrant and refugee youth.
For their work they do in their communities.
We create intergenerational spaces.
To celebrate immigrant mothers and grandmothers.
And we pass the mic to others.
And invite youth
To hear from others who inspire us.
My name is Ayan. I'm originally from Somalia, but I grew up in Kenya. I went to school in Kenya, and I came to Canada in 2016 August through a scholarship that sponsors refugee students to come and continue their post-secondary education here. Yeah, I came here alone, and it was like being thrown into a sea where I could not see anyone who had my experiences, or who I could talk to, or who could relate to me. But then when I went to that conference, I met young people. I met people who shared stories that I could relate and be like, oh yes, that happened to me. And that was good for me in terms of giving me the morale to continue living on. Again, seeing youth talk about the experiences themselves and not a person going there who is not a youth or who doesn't identify as, as an immigrant or refugee or a racialized youth. So something that Fresh Voices initiative does that's really important for me and which I would like to see it continue is how it's not only about youth. Fresh Voices tries to engage the wider community in terms of an example for me was my mother's home event. Yeah, I guess celebrating not only mothers, but celebrating other people in the community that tend not to be celebrated most of the times was something that stood out for me. As immigrant and refugee youth, we face a lot of challenges, and it's quite amazing how we still have time for to try and engage our communities and try to be together, even though we have all these issues that affect us and all that. So for any immigrant or refugee youth, I would say go for it. Challenges will always be there, but together, if we come together and share issues and try to come up with solutions, it makes a huge difference rather than just being by yourself and allowing these things to affect you alone.
To me, Fresh Voices is somewhere my voice can be heard.
Where I can listen and learn from others.
Where I can help to create changes
that impact the lives of immigrant and refugee youth.
Let me tell you about the land that saw me grow, about the stories and legends that I now know to be the truth that drives me. There were Andes giants that at one time shouldered snow. In creeks that next to coffee fields used to flow. However, it all got compromised. The day my brother dies, the day unwound my mother's cry, so we began to move. Things unfolded the way they always do. Mother's back home, I'm living here, but I picked up a pen and drew the life I wanted. You see, as a refugee, we don't have the choice to stop. We got ideas for this, and we can talk it slow. We plant philosophies from which our leaders grow, and know that justice will be harvested from what we today sow.
As a butterfly enters each new stage of its life cycle,
It grows more beautiful.
And as Fresh Voices continues to grow and evolve,
New members join and old ones depart.
Our voices will become louder
Until we cannot be ignored.
and it will be beautiful.